Good morning. Good morning to all of you. I was just saying the I that you believe to be awake is not. We can't even say that it's asleep, that I is asleep, because that still gives that small I, meaning the identity that you have chosen to hide from the reality that is forever real. That I that you have always believed yourself to be is not anything other than what you believe it to be. And you have believed it to be something pretty powerful and great and important, and therefore look around. Oops, sorry, I keep hitting the table. Look around and you'll see, well, at least you'll seem to see what you have made up. You'll seem to see what you have made up in your imagination. Right before the session started, we were listening to a little recording of Alan Watts talking about that. And he said, imagine that you could go to sleep and have a dream that lasted 75 years. And during that 75-year period, you could have all the experiences that were possible to have, all the delights, everything you would experience during that 75 years, exactly as you expect and want. And you would go through several nights of this where you would have this long, elaborate dream. It's an interesting idea. But then there would come a point at which you would say, you know, that this is too predictable. Let me have a dream in which unexpected things happen that I can't foresee. Good, bad, whatever. But they're still dreams. And that goes on a couple of times until we arrive at the point that we are at right now, where you realize that expected, unexpected, anticipated, unanticipated, the dream is a dream. And though we invest so much into the seeming reality of the one who is dreaming, notice I said the one who is dreaming. We invest so much into that we have concretized, we have made powerfully real all the things that we do that, of course, in our mind are very important to do. Here at Namaste, we're doing wonderful, important things. We're building gardens, we're cleaning, these are all wonderful things to do in a community, or should I say, let's see if anybody can guess what I'm going to say. Or in a, come on, Jet, you know. That's right, in a prison. We're back to that. You may remember that I've asked you in the past to end every sentence where you say that you're going to do something, you want to do something, you're about to do something. Like, I think when I'm done with the session, I'm going to go and have a Zoom call in the prison. I'm pretty sure that later on in the day, I'm going to stop by the cafe because I'm going to need a jolt of caffeine in the prison. It's just a little trick to remind us that this is not the destination. This is not the goal. We're here in this beautiful community, whether you're here at Namaste Village or not, we're here with one goal: to awaken and to remember. To remember what? That's right. That's all. That's it right there. It's the only thing you're called to remember. Only love, only God, only right now. That's how the awakening happens. That's how we wake up from that prison dream where we are bound by beliefs and expectations and whatever else it may be that keep us locked in a form or a system that could never contain the holy, perfect child of God, otherwise known as you. I'm going to say it again: a prison that could never contain the holy, perfect child of God, otherwise known as you. So we're breaking free from the shackles. The chains are falling at our feet. And that's good news, wouldn't you say?
Yes.
So I have a parable, and it's one that I wrote last night, and I'm only now beginning to get clarity on what it means. Sometimes that's one of the things that I think is fun about writing. It's not like I come up with a meaning first and then write a story around it. I just write a story and find the meaning. Isn't that kind of what we do here? We write a story, a drama, a comedy, whatever it may be, and then we look for the meaning within that. So I'm going to read this, and then I'm going to turn to Vicky right away. And Vicky, I want you to listen and see if you can identify your meaning, what you see or hear in this parable. And then I'll share mine. Here it is. A great master from the east, covered in dirt and dust from days of walking, knocked on the door of the ashram. A young novice opened the door and, seeing the disheveled wanderer, asked him what he wanted. I have an important message for the leader of this community, the master said. Please take me to him without delay. The young novice gave a sour look and started to close the huge door. Our leader doesn't just drop everything to see everyone who knocks on this door, especially someone as ragged as you. Go away and don't come back. Then he shut the door and left the master from the east standing in the cold. The master leaned against his walking stick and waited. An hour passed before a monk who had been living in the community for many decades walked up and pushed the master aside. Why are you blocking the door to this great ashram? The monk asked the master from the east. Either stand to the side or move to a different place. Brother, the monk said. Well, that would not be the monk, that would be the other one. Brother, see, there's still editing that needs to be done. Brother, the master said, I have an important message to share with the leader of this community. It is most urgent. Can you take me to him? The monk, who was much taller than the master, looked down his nose and said, such nonsense. Go away before I call the guards and have you thrown in the ditch. Then he opened the door and slipped inside, leaving the master standing alone. A minute later, the door finally opened again, and a young boy popped out his head. I heard how rude the other brothers were to you. Do you really have an important message to share with our teacher? Yes, I do, the master said. And then he smiled and walked away.
Oh.
The boy was confused as he closed the door. He began walking in the direction of the teacher's room. He knocked on the door, and when the aged leader opened it, the boy said, a man just left who said that he had an important message to give to you. But when I was ready to let him in, he smiled and walked away. The teacher looked up and said, ah, I know who this man was, and it's true. He did have a message to give to me, but it wasn't an ordinary message written on a piece of paper or parchment. It was something much more meaningful and important. Can you tell me what the message was that he was so eager to share? The boy said. I would be happy to. You, my dear boy, are the message he came to deliver. The boy stood at the threshold of the teacher's room, his eyes wide with wonder as he tried to comprehend the words spoken by the wise teacher. Me? He whispered, his voice barely audible. Yes, you, the teacher affirmed, his gaze gentle yet penetrating. You are the embodiment of the message he wished to deliver. The message of humility, kindness, and compassion. The boy's heart swelled with a mixture of disbelief and awe. But why me, he asked, his voice trembling with emotion. The teacher smiled warmly, placing a reassuring hand on the boy's shoulder. Because in your innocence and sincerity, you demonstrated qualities that are far more valuable than any words or teachings. You showed kindness to a stranger, compassion to someone in need, and humility in your willingness to serve. Tears welled up in the boy's eyes as he absorbed the weight of the teacher's words. In that moment, he realized the profound impact of simple acts of kindness and the power they held to transform lives. And remember, my dear boy, the teacher continued, his voice gentle yet firm, the true message lies not only in the words we speak, but in the way that we live our lives. It is in our actions, our deeds, and the love we share with others that the deepest truths are revealed. With a newfound sense of purpose and understanding, the boy left the teacher's room, his heart brimming with gratitude and compassion. And as he walked through the corridors of the ashram, he carried with him the message of kindness and love that had been entrusted to him by the mysterious master at the door. Many years later, when the boy, now grown, was elected to be the leader of the same ashram, he poked his head out of the same door, and to his great surprise, saw the great master from the east. So, Victoria, what do
Brother
you
James.
take from that?
I love that. Thank you. You gave it all to us you gave it all to us. And whoever is knocking at our door, wherever I think I already know something, or I walk away quickly myself, that's exactly the place where I want to be open-minded. You know, open-mindedness comes with kindness. It just assumes innocence everywhere. Open-mindedness, realizing we couldn't possibly know. And it's enough just to be willing to know and to be present and kind and receive what is always being offered to us, whether it's a little bumblebee buzzing around us or a stranger tattered and torn. Wherever we're open to receive, we'll receive because of our openness. It is the state of innocence and receptivity. I really loved it. It's also the story, or you were saying before when we were listening to Alan Watts, there was a story, and Star Trek did it. One of their episodes had Captain Picard live 75-year life. Do you remember it, anyone? Anyway.
That is probably my favorite Next Generation episode, by the way. Go ahead and talk more about that.
Right.
I love that episode.
That one and the one, where he turns to light, the visitor turns to light. But in that one, all of us are living over and over repetitive patterns of fear. And when we come into an open pattern, a new pattern of being, like Alan Watts was talking about, awakening is just being. It's not opposites, life or death, or this or that. It's presence in being with for no reason other than the joy of being with. And that's a state of open-hearted kindness and receptivity. And Picard did live that 75 years, had a family, grown children, the whole thing, but he did realize it was a dream. And I'm not going to remember all the details. And he awoke with the gift of love, of knowing he loved and was loved and had a family. And we are, wherever we are in time, right now, all of us, the same lesson, not to reject anything out of arrogance, but in humility, even when we are admonished or we are slapped in the face physically or symbolically, just let it be and stay in that patient waiting state of giving. He gave the message and the boy received the message. That's what made the boy come to the door and open it. he came to the door because he already received the message that there was one holy one waiting. Everyone's a holy one, and everyone is waiting for us to receive the message so that our own innocence can blossom and we can enjoy being the same message. So that's why I would take that this morning, Brother James, but I loved it. I'd love to hear what you're doing with it. Go ahead.
Well, there's one line in particular that stands out for me that I think delivers what the real message is. It says, "You are the embodiment of the message that he wished to deliver, the message of humility, kindness, and compassion." So once again, we are called to be the embodiment of that lesson. If the body has any purpose at all, maybe that's it. To embody the qualities of grace so that we can be the vehicle, which we know is really the only goal of the body, to be a vehicle of communication. So to communicate grace, humility, compassion. And maybe this is what awakens us from the dream, because we have so identified with the body or the identity, but for the wrong purposes, to be autonomous, to get what's mine, all of these egoic qualities. But what happens when we turn it around and say, no, this body, this personality, this entire life is meant to become the embodiment of compassion and grace and understanding and humility? Is that what begins to dissolve the mortar between the bricks? You know, when you build a brick wall, you have to put mortar between to hold it in place. But what happens when that mortar begins to dissolve? The wall begins to crumble. And that's what's happening to many of us. The wall of our egoic lives, the identity itself is beginning to dissolve. In the Enlightenment Partner Program, there's a few people sitting right in front of me who are part of that. In the very beginning of the program, there is at least 1 week on 3 words: I welcome, I allow, I dissolve. I think we've talked about it here as well. I welcome everything that happens. I welcome. I allow it to teach me what it needs to teach me, and then I dissolve all of those constructs, all of those restraints, all of those, everything that I've used to shore up who I believe myself to be, begin to dissolve into who I really am, the truth that is forever true. And speaking of that story of from Next Generation, I'm also reminded of one of my favorite stories from the life of Saint Francis. When he was walking on a very cold, rainy, muddy night with I think it was Brother Leo, and he turns to Brother Leo and he says, "Brother Leo, do you know what true happiness is?" And Brother Leo, he's pretty used to Francis and how he sets things up. So he says, "Brother Francis, go ahead and tell me, what is perfect happiness?" He says, "You might think that perfect happiness would be," and then he starts to give a whole list of different things that we would normally think perfect happiness would be. This happens to me, that happens to me, something else occurs, all these things. But after each one, he says, "But that is not what perfect happiness is." And finally, Brother Leo gets exasperated and says, Brother Francis, please just tell me, from your perspective, what is perfect happiness?" He said, "Perfect happiness would be if we arrived at the door of our own friary, muddy and cold and damp, and we knock on the door, and one of our own brothers comes and says, 'Who are you?' And we look and say, 'But it is I, as Brother Francis and Brother Leo.' And the friar says, 'Go away from here. How dare you imitate our great leader and our dear brother? Go away.' And he throws him out. And Francis says, to me, Brother Leo, if we can endure that with joy and compassion, that is perfect happiness." So that's another little parable for you. Perfect happiness. God's will for me is what? Perfect happiness. Not relative happiness. Not primarily being happy. Perfect happiness. What is perfect happiness? It has no opposite. Perfect happiness means I'm happy no matter what. And this is challenging. I have to say, in my own life, the last couple of days, I've been going through a couple of things at my church. Like I said last night, sometimes I won't even go there. There's a hunger that needs to be present for only the truth, just as we share in our morning meditation. That morning prayer that we do represents a hunger that we feel within. That's why we're here. We're here because we're hungry to know the truth, to feel the truth, to live the truth. And that's not always true. And so I've been going through some issues around that have shown me my own judgments, shown me my own where I'm holding on and trying to force things. Good. That's what it takes sometimes. And once again, like with Francis, those aren't things to push away. Those are things to say, this, being able to endure this and to do so with love and compassion, this is what perfect happiness is. So let's see if we can live that today. Let's see if we can be like that boy who sticks his head out of the ashram door. And when the great master from the East sees him, he knows that the boy himself is the message. We are each the message here today. And to that we say, Amen, 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 y punto. We love you all. Hello, Prem.
Morning. Thank you.
Have a beautiful day, everyone. We love you.
Keep them laughing.
We will.